I'm Christy Cornelius, Professor of Early Childhood Education, and I'm also the Faculty Coordinator for the Center for Teaching and Learning. And this is Sandy Fry. She's the Division Chair of Social Sciences, and she also occasionally teaches here at Jefferson. Today we're going to talk about pedagogy, or actually best practices in adult education. We're going to think about 3 of our best practices today in this module. The first one we're going to talk about is how we actively engage students in the course material. As we actively engage students in the material, we know that they're going to learn it better, they're going to retain the material better, it'll probably be more meaningful to them, and it might even be more interesting to them. And Sandy, I know that when you teach courses, you always try to actively engage the students every class session, so they too will learn the material better and retain it better.
Yes, absolutely. I try to go back and forth between short lectures and periods of active engagement.
Right. You know, one thing that I always try to do when I'm preparing for a class, I don't just look over the textbook chapter or my lecture notes, but I always try and ask myself a question: what will I have the students do during that class session? Because we want them to do something that is hands-on or something that really engages them in the material where they're having to focus and think about it. So when we think along the lines of what will I have the students do during the class time, that helps us get into the mindset also that they are going to have to focus on something that they can better learn the material.
Absolutely. If the instructor is exhausted at the end of the class and the students are bored, then that means they weren't actively engaged.
Right.
So we definitely want to consider what will the students be doing.
What will they be doing during the class session? The second practice we want to review today is supporting students in their development of critical thinking skills. It's very important during every class session that the instructor gives the students something to really think about. Students tend to want just obvious answers or quick answers or easy answers, but instead we want them to have to reason things through, to justify their choices. And every class session we should give the students something to help support the development of critical thinking skills. And Sandy, I know that when you teach your courses, during the class sessions, you try and give students opportunities to develop those critical thinking skills.
Absolutely, because I think while they're learning the course content, that gives them an opportunity to develop skills that they'll use in the workplace later.
Great. The third practice we're going to review today is the fact that we need to make our course material relevant to the students' lives. So many times students just don't make that connection on their own, and it's up to the instructor to let the students know how important the material is to them, or it will be important to them in future years, maybe as an employee in their career. Sometimes students just don't see that relevance, but as instructors, every class session we want to make sure we point that out to them, that they'll use these skills. And we make that connection for them lots of times and help them understand that. And when you've taught your classes, sometimes I'm sure you've had to do the same thing to make those connections for the students of how the material will be relevant to them.
Absolutely, because sometimes it will be relevant to them in future roles they may have in the workplace, but other times we can use relevancy to get them to understand the concepts, so that if you're using an example to explain a point, then you can try to think of an example that students will relate to from their past experiences.
Yes. In the remainder of this video, you will see me using these 3 practices as I teach an early childhood education class. I have introduced science curriculum to the students, and all 3 of these practices will become apparent to you. I hope that you will consider using these 3 practices as you are teaching your courses this semester also. So let's review for just a minute before we get into today's topic of science curriculum in early childhood. Okay, who can give me one of our indicators of constructivist teaching. Constructivism, what's it mean? Let's go back over that. Hands-on, minds-on, meaning that children are going to be doing something hands-on, and it's going to be a minds-on focus or engagement. What else? Hands-on, minds-on, that was number one.
Facilitated.
Yeah. Who's going to facilitate the learning? The teacher. Teacher facilitates the learning. What does that mean?
They make the learning happen.
They make it happen. They're going to set up the room, they're going to provide the materials and the activities on their lesson plans. They're going to facilitate that learning, and then the children are going to do it. All right, today we're going to talk about a couple of different concepts that relate to science with young children. Now, it's kind of hard for us as adults to think about foundational concepts of toddlers, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, because our cognition, our way of thinking is so far beyond that. But we have to try to get in the mind of a toddler or a preschool age child. All right, here's the first concept we're going to think about when it comes to science learning with young children. Physical knowledge. Physical knowledge. Let's just think about that. Physical knowledge. Physical knowledge. Young children are trying to make sense of their world, aren't they? Yeah. They're trying to make sense of their world. So they are examining, exploring, manipulating objects and materials. And they're gathering information about those things. And that's called physical knowledge. Gathering information or just basic facts about something. Now again, it's kind of hard for us to think on that lower elementary level about science learning, but let's just think about that for a second. Collecting facts, sensory, all right, exploration, to collect facts about something. All right, basic facts. Now, I've got a little something for us to help us maybe learn about physical knowledge. Let's put some leaves out on your table. And I want you with your partners at your table here. Oh, and we're going to make a nice mess, aren't we? I want you to just pick up the leaves. Think about physical knowledge. Physical knowledge. Basic facts. The children might gather about leaves. You throw some of them if you want. We'll have fun with these today. Physical knowledge. What do young children, when they explore leaves? Amber, can you reach some? Throw them on over. What kinds of facts and information are they going to gather about leaves? Basic facts. What do you think? If you were a toddler and you were exploring leaves for the first time, what kinds of physical knowledge might you gather from these?
The textures.
Well, give me something specific. A toddler's not going to think the word texture. How might a toddler think? Okay, keep going.
How it feels.
How it feels. Crunchy. Does anybody have one that's kind of
Smooth.
soft, smooth,
Wet.
smooth, wet? Yeah. Some of them are a little damp. All right. What other kinds of basic facts?
Different colors.
Okay. Yes. All right. Now let's think about those basic facts. Once we gather facts about leaves, physical knowledge about leaves, then we can move to a higher level of thinking. And that's called logical mathematical thinking. So let's go one step further. Logical mathematical thinking or knowledge. Now, how about a teacher of young children? Could you add a little more with this logical mathematical thinking? Could you add anything else? Let's say you had these in a sensory table in a preschool classroom. How could the teacher facilitate even more learning?
Well, you could sort them by their different shapes and colors.
Sure. You could sort them, put the things, the leaves that are similar together and those that are alike together, differences, pointing out those differences. How else could we facilitate the learning as a teacher?
I don't know if this.
Question.
I'm sorry.
Ask them questions.
Ask them questions like what? What might you ask children? Where do you think they came from? Yeah. Where do you think they came from? Uh-huh.
What's their favorite color?
Okay, all right. What's their favorite color? Let's think about two different types of science for young children. In introducing concepts, whether it's physical knowledge or logical, mathematical, or social learning, there's two different types of science that we want to introduce to young children. I think I'm going to put those over here. Okay, the first type of science that we would introduce to young children would be life sciences. Life sciences. Now, a lot of you have had biology, botany perhaps, life sciences. What kinds of things might we introduce to young children that would have to do with life sciences?
Growing thing and
Animals, let's put animals down. Oh, is that a popular one with young children? Animals. Sure, yeah. All right, let's kind of categorize that. What kinds of animals? Mammals might be a little
Insects.
higher order level thinking for young children. Bugs, what else?
Farm animals.
Farm animals, what else? What else? Oh, keep going. Birds, what else?
wild animals.
Okay, wild animals in terms of
The zoo. Okay.
zoo animals, sure. What else? What'd you say, Chelsea? Zoo animals, uh-huh. How about dinosaurs? Young children love to think about dinosaurs, explore things about dinosaurs, okay? All right, so animals, somebody said something else that has to do with life sciences. What's another category? That was animals, okay? What else?
Their own body.
Their own bodies, the human body. Human body. Now again, very young children are learning about their own body. Sure, okay. Plants. Do young children like to learn about plants? Yeah, we just talked about leaves, trees, during the autumn season, fall season. What else about plants? Yeah.
Maybe so much about plants and animals, habitats, where they grow, where they live.
Where they live, where they grow, sure, okay. What else about plants? Parts, okay. Planting seeds, sure.
Different types of plants, like you have bushes and trees and flowers.
Okay, and keeping it very simple,
Yeah.
those simple categories, grass, flowers, trees, things like that, all right? Do children like to just investigate different kinds of seeds?
Yeah.
And here we can make some logical mathematical knowledge, some comparisons there about different kinds of seeds. Sure, all right? Growing seeds. How many of you remember growing seeds when you were little? It was just amazing, wasn't it? To see the sprout come up or put it in the window and, wow, after a few days you had grass or whatever it was. Okay. All right, life sciences. Any questions about life sciences that we can introduce to young children? Or the physical sciences, however you want to think of it. Water. Do children like to explore water?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Could you put water in a sensory table and children love it just about every day, right? Okay. Add a few things to it, a little color every once in a while, or some detergent, have some bubbles, and then you've got a whole new and different experience, don't you? Mm-hmm. All right. What else would be a non-living science for young children?
Fire. I don't know how much you could do with fire.
Right, and we would probably focus on the safety. Uh-huh. What else?
Earth.
Earth. What would you do with earth?
Rocks.
Soil.
Rocks, soil, sand, sure. Things you'd put in the sensory table and let them explore. Mm-hmm. All right. Another one?
Wind.
Wind. Okay, can we maybe put wind with that big category of
Air, weather.
air and weather? Okay. And let's just remember, cognitively for young children, is air going to be a little abstract for their thinking? Yes. Weather is more concrete. Yeah. We can look out the window and experience weather. We can put on clothing or extra layers of it or whatever as related to weather. It's a little more concrete than just air. Okay? Another one, number 5. Anybody have another one? Non-living sciences.
What about space?
Space?
Like
Okay.
planets.
Okay.
For stuff like that.
Young children, let's think about that. Cognitively,
How old are we talking right now?
would you introduce outer space, planets, stars, things like that to preschool age children?
Yes.
Maybe. However,
because they like
Because like the moon
they
and the
like
sun.
rockets and they but that so I didn't know if that's too.
some of it's a little more concrete when we think about looking at the moon when it's dark outside,
Right.
or the sun, things like that, and the stars, all of that. However, we don't expect a whole lot, do we, with outer space? Because we can't see the other planets, it's too abstract, all right? And that's going to require a higher level of thinking. So what age groups with that? What do you think?
3rd grade, 2nd grade.
Yeah, more like 2nd grade, all right? Or maybe, what did Piaget tell us about those concrete operations and formal operations after age 6 or 7? We can think more abstractly, can't we? Yeah.
Well, would the child, even preschool, ask why water is not a living entity?
Would a preschooler ask that? Why water is not living?
Would they understand water is not living? Because they would consider water maybe is alive because it has fish, but it's not the water.
Because there are
that's-
things
water
in
is
it
abiotic,
that are
so
living.
what's in it is alive.
Yes.
So that concept, can they understand that concept at that age?
Yes, I think so, yes. That there is no life to water, but there are things that do live in water, that require water to live, like us.
So do you think that's a little too more abstract and above maybe a preschooler age?
But if they can understand that with water, how come they can't understand that concept with air?
Because we can't see air, all right? Air is there, but it's not visual to us. And young children are very concrete, all right? We can see water, we can touch it, we can feel it, we can experience it, but we can't do that so much with air. And a young child, again, their thinking is all tied into what they can experience by touch, feel, hearing, seeing, smelling, and tasting their 5 senses.
But it does count as wind. Like they can understand the concept of wind.
They can, and why is that?
Because you can feel it.
Because you can feel it, all right? And we can't really see wind, but we see things blowing in the wind, all right? So that makes it more concrete to a young child, all right? Okay, let's go on with our concepts. Another one? Another non-living science? How about magnets? Children like to play with magnets? Children like to experience magnets? Sure they do. How many of you remember playing with magnets at some point in time when you were little? Some of you? All right. When we think about magnets, children, hands-on, minds-on focus. Boy, it's all about that, isn't it? Absolutely. Okay. Anything else? You can put that down as number 5, magnets. What else?
Magnifying glass.
Okay, all right. Magnifying glasses are supplies or materials we might use in our science area. Okay, keep going. What other kinds of things?
I don't think it counts. But electricity?
What could we take out of electricity that might be basic enough for young children to
Light.
learn? Light, okay. All right, that's kind of a stretch, isn't it, with electricity?
Yeah.
But let's go with even light. Light and darkness. All right, that's something young children can experience. Let's go back to her idea of electricity. I'm going to put that, really stretch it a little bit, with things like gravity, with things like physics in terms of ramps and angles and things like that. Now let's bring it down to a preschool age.
Energy?
Energy, okay. Are young children learning anything about physics?
Yes.
What area of the classroom do young children learn a lot about physics?
What about blocks?
What about block play? What about that? How do you put physics into block play?
Because you got to build it a certain way or it'll tumble down.
All right, okay, keep going. What else?
The higher the ramp, the faster the car.
All right, yes. Do young children love to build ramps? How about in the block area? Is that a perfect place to introduce those ideas, those science concepts? All right. What does gravity have anything to do with blocks? The block area. Does it?
Well, when they fall.
When they fall, they're always going to fall down, aren't they? Think about this with a very young child, an older infant or a toddler in a high chair. And you've all experienced they're learning about gravity in a high chair. Because you put a 10, 11, 12-month-old in a high chair and put several little food items on his tray for him to feed himself, what's he going to do occasionally? Right? Yes? Right? Okay. He throws it off, and what happens? Falls to the floor. And then what's he going to do next?
Do it again.
Try it again. And what happens? Same result. And what's he do again? And over and over and over. And what's he learning about? Gravity. Right. It always falls, doesn't it? All right. Okay. So some things, I'm sorry?
What would you call that though? Gravity learning or?
I just call it introducing children to physics.
Okay.
When we've got block play and ramps and things falling down, we have a lot of physics, don't we, involved. How about things with wheels that turn? Do you know of any toys that have gears? Did any of you used to play with some of those gear types of toys? Sure. Is that physics? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about outside on the playground where a young child pushes another child in a wagon or on a tricycle? Is that physics? Sure it is. It's energy, isn't it? So we are helping children develop those foundational concepts about science, aren't we? Through life sciences, through physical sciences. Okay, now we're going to stop for just a minute. And I'm going to ask you to get into some groups at your table with your partners at your tables. And you are going to do some science activity planning. Now, as teachers of young children, do you think you will be required to plan science activities? Absolutely. If you are teaching in a preschool classroom, will you have to incorporate science activities on your lesson plans? Yes, you will. Kindergarten, first grade, and on up. You're going to have to be able to plan science activities, the non-living as well as the life sciences. All right, we're going to start first with this category, with the non-living sciences. I want you to pick just one of those, whether it's physics or water or magnets or whatever, and I want you to pick one of those categories, and I would like for you and your partners to plan one activity for preschool-age children in one of those non-living science categories. Okay? Gather some ideas from one another. Talk about it with your partners. Write out some ideas. Jot them down.
Are you just trying to hear?
Oh, I'm sorry. You can turn around with work and work with people however you want to do it. Talk to your partners about your ideas. What do you think?
So we can bring in different types of soil like mulch, I'm like feeling. Yeah.
Which one are you gonna pick? Water? Oh my God, that's easy. You can plan all kinds of water activities. Think about also, young children can learn about terrain. What's that mean? The terrain.
Like the ground.
Keep going.
Like the grass. I don't like explaining. Yes, can explain what I'm thinking.
How about in other parts of the country or the world? What is the terrain like? What is the terrain like in Arizona?
Plains. I'm thinking of desert.
There you go. Bingo. Desert. All right. What else? What is the terrain like in Colorado?
Like hills, trees, snow.
More than just hills. What? Mountains. Mountainous. Okay. And children love to learn about jungles, the forest, the rainforest. Okay. So you can do a lot with Earth. Okay.
We were gonna have them try and like make sailboats, but we were gonna have them be able to like choose out of like styrofoam or soda bottle or something heavy and see if it sinks or not to the bottom. Would that be okay?
Okay, so you're going to do some sink and float
Yeah.
with water? Sure. Yeah. Okay. So what will you do? Sensory table? What are you going to do? Tell me how you're going to do it.
We were gonna just like lay out soda bottles or styrofoam or maybe something heavy, and they get to go pick which one they want to use, and then they get to create their sailboat and put it in the water and see if it floats or sinks.
See if it floats or sinks. What was your topic? Water?
Yeah, we did water, what floats, what don't. You can mix different liquids like oil and stuff and watch it separate.
Okay.
What
Mixes with
dissolves,
water, what won't?
yeah, what dissolves, what don't, sugar, salt, flour.
Okay. Right. Okay, some different solutions and things like that. Okay, great. All right. Okay, now we're going to do one other science activity today. And I'm going to ask you to get in two groups. So how about this side of the room, and if you don't mind turning your chairs that way, and if you two would come out on the side, because, or actually Sarah, why don't you take that chair, Pam, so we have kind of a circle, and sort of a circle. Now, if you know what we're going to do, if you've done this before, please leave it to yourself. Don't share with anybody else in the room or in your group. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around and I'm going to pour some of this heavy whipping cream in your jar. Then whoever has the jar, please make sure the lid's on really nice and tight, all right? And then you're going to start shaking it vigorously. Maybe half of what's in that carton. We'll just divide it.
Sensory.
It's awfully chunky.
It is chunky because I had it frozen, all right? Almost frozen. Almost frozen. It's very,
Oh my god.
it is very, very cold, all right? So go ahead and put the cap on, put the lid on real tight. Now, you're probably going to want to make sure you got a good grasp on it and shake it vigorously, all right? And I'm sorry it's chunky. It's very, very cold.
Work them muscles.
What's that weight?
Shake weight. The shake weight.
And when you're tired of shaking, pass it on to the next person in your group. Believe me, we'll go around several times. All right? Shake it hard.
Shake that thing.
Might they have gained from this?
Kathy.
It's cold. What else?
Taking turns.
No, the way that it feels when
Physical knowledge.
when it feels when they
Science.
shake it, when the liquid moves back and forth, how it feels.